We're ready to begin.
All right, good afternoon. Welcome to the October 5th, 2021 Community Pool Project Ad Hoc Committee meeting. I will now call the meeting to order. Please note that this meeting is being attended by the City Council and City staff who have been appointed to the Community Pool Project Ad Hoc Committee and will be recorded via Zoom teleconference. Thank you for your patience as we continue to navigate city business through this meeting process. Present today, we have Council Committee members Mayor Joe Kalmick and Mayor Pro Tem Mike Barapapa. City Staff Committee members present, Assistant City Manager Patrick Gallegos, Finance Director Kelly Telford, Marine Safety Chief Joe Bailey, City Engineer / Deputy Director of Public Works Iris Lee, and Management Analyst Jennifer Robles. So today we're going to be talking about the community project update, but first I want to read this aloud regarding oral communications. Pursuant to the Brown Act, the council cannot discuss or take action on any item not on the agenda unless authorized by law. No other business shall be considered. All email comments the city clerk received before the start of the meeting were distributed to the city council, or to the committee members, I should say, and made available to the public on the city's website. Email comments received after the start of the meeting will be forwarded to the committee members after the meeting. There were no comments received. All right. So again, good afternoon, Mayor Kalmick and Councilmember Barapapa and city staff. If you recall, the last time we met, we informed you that staff would be meeting with Los Alamitos school district officials to gain their feedback on building a new pool at McGaw Elementary. And we've done that. But before we talk about our discussions with the district, we wanted to provide you with some background on previous discussions between former staff and former council members that really highlight how we ended up back at McGaw. In 2008, the council tasked staff with performing a feasibility study for a swimming pool renovation or replacement at McGaw. Do you mind pulling up the slide for McGaw, Jennifer? Thank you. While I won't go into every aspect of the study, it is fair to say that there were financial, political, and construction issues that delayed any new building of a swimming pool at McGaw. That doesn't mean there weren't site plans drawn and other sites evaluated. In fact, site plans were drawn up in 2008 and 2009 for Zoder Park, Marina Park, the tennis center, and even a new site plan for McGaw. More discussions were had, but it wasn't until January of 2011 that the city manager, which preceded City Manager Ingram, was tasked with evaluating sites in Seal Beach for a new pool. Essentially, they were back at square one. In February 2011, staff held a study session regarding the pool. One interesting item to note in the report is that previous to the study session in 2011, staff had brought the community pool discussion to council on 4 separate occasions to talk about McGaw. 2 other times they talked about Marina Park, and twice to discuss the Navy base. At the 2011 study session, staff presented pros and cons for 6 sites: Zoder, First Street and Marina, First Street and PCH, the end of Adolfo Lopez Drive, the Boeing parking lot, and Old Ranch Golf Course. The staff report did not include a recommendation by staff for any particular site. The report was more for discussion purposes so that the council could direct staff to start work on their preferred location based on the information provided. The discussion led to more discussions, and turnover of council and staff meant the loss of institutional knowledge, which created basically a Bermuda Triangle of ideas, assessments, and studies where they went in and nothing came out. I say all of this not to lay blame at our predecessors, as I know none of us were with the city at that time, but to merely highlight the vicious cycle we have been stuck in since 2008. So let me fast forward to more recent times. As you know, the past few years, the city has been working with the Navy base to build a pool at that site. We received permission from the Navy, had town halls, had many meetings with their staff, and actually made quite a bit of progress. I want to point out Iris Lee, our city engineer, who's been very integral in those discussions, particularly in the more technical conversations. As we all know, the challenge wasn't the red tape, but rather the cost of the pool, which at 20 million plus was more than enough for the council to hit the pause button and redirect staff during a strategic workshop to reevaluate McGaw as a potential site. This was not bad advice when considering the financial burden a $20 million pool would mean to the city, And especially when considering we had a new Seal Beach Council and a new LAUSD board and a new staff who might be open to the idea. And they were at least open to discussing the feasibility of building a new pool at McGaw. And so that's where we find ourselves. So on September 21st, we met with representatives of LAUSD to restart those conversations and to gain feedback from the reps to determine what the city would need to do in order for their board to consider a new pool at McGaw. City staff also heard challenges from LAUSD that would need to be worked out, much of which was shown in previous studies: parking, security, and potential impacts to the tennis courts because of the larger footprint that would be needed there. Coincidentally, the very next day on September 22nd, the city held its regularly scheduled quarterly meeting with the district and spoke again about the proposed pool at McGaw. LAUSD reps stated that they could not lose parking as parking is already impacted and would make things very difficult if a new pool removed any parking. LAUSD also mentioned that they would like to see a conceptual plan in order to determine if a new pool would work for them. So that's where we are with the discussion at McGaw. But before I open it up for questions and or feedback about McGaw, I'd like to touch on another site that has been brought up in the past and more recently, Zoder Park. While I don't know your feelings on a pool at Zoder, I am aware that various iterations of council members did not see Zoder as a worthy site for a pool, even though it is one of the only sites that is on city property. However, I would be remiss if I did not bring it up to gauge your desire to evaluate this location. As I mentioned, before the site was evaluated back in 2008 and 2011, but no action was taken. One thing that would need to take place if this site was to be considered is the relocation of the softball field. So this morning, Recreation Manager Tim Kelsey and I met with reps from LAUSD and the Pony League president to see if moving the softball field to McGaw was possible. And as you may know, Pony League operates kids baseball at McGaw and has a few baseball fields that it uses for practice and games. So the major challenges identified by LAUSD reps and Pony were potential parking issues again, lighting and noise issues for surrounding residents, and configuring an adult softball league with kids practice and game fields adjacent. LAUSD reps mentioned that the new lighting that would be needed could cost anywhere from $300,000 to $500,000. Though most of the adult league play is after 6 p.m., there are some games Pony has that are past 6 p.m. as well, making scheduling games and practicing challenging too. Some of the cons reported in the study in 2011, if Zoder were chosen, were that the city would lose open space and the site would need a coastal zone permit. There might also be challenges with noise and parking for residents. Again, the advantages of this location would be that it is city property and there could be some savings as a result. That doesn't mean the construction of a pool would be cheap at this site, just that there might be potential savings. And lastly, I wanted to briefly mention the Navy base as a potential location for a pool, since there's already been so much legwork at this location. While the $20 million price tag for an aquatic center is no doubt high, it might place us in a precarious financial situation in the future. This does not mean that we could not investigate a smaller pool at this location and potentially drive the price down to where it could compete against the cost of a pool at McGaw or Zoder. There would also be no issues with parking, no nuisances with lighting and noise for residents, since there are no surrounding residents around this site. And we have already been approved by the Navy to build a pool here if we are so inclined, the only site that currently has approval to build. And with that, I'd like to open it up for questions and or feedback from the council, and would really like to get some direction based on the information provided today and after our discussions, so that we can kind of hone in on where we need to go from here. So with that, that's my short summary of what's taken place in the past month or so. And now if you have any questions or if you'd like to have an open discussion, Mayor Kalmick and Mayor Pro Tem Vera Papa, I'd welcome it.
Mike, do you have something? Otherwise, I've got a couple of things.
Just a quick question. I noticed you put the acreage on the Zoder field and the Navy base. What is the I know it's not an acre, but what's the dimension for the existing pool area at McGaw? It'd be kind of nice to see an overlay at one point, maybe not today, obviously, but of how big that pool is that you're showing now at McGaw how it would fit or how, how much bigger or smaller it is on the Zoder field. I would imagine it's much smaller than that area, right? Is that correct?
Well, I do know specifically about Zoder that it's a 3-acre site. The softball field is about 1.7 acres, and the passive park area is about 1.3 acres. I don't have that information in front of me regarding McGaw unless somebody on this meeting has that in front of them. Let's see, I don't have it.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if we need it right this second. I was just maybe for the next meeting, or just I would imagine it's significantly bigger at Zoder than it is at McGaw right now. That pool site. Were you thinking about using the bigger portion of Zoder, or the 1.3 or the 1.7 acre, or just all of it?
Well, I do know that they were looking, well, I mean, there's a couple considerations. There's I think there's a daycare center as well there. And we'd have to have some additional discussions with them too. And there's also the potential, I know we have a pop-up dog park there, and I don't know what that means for the future of a dog park at that location. It may be that, it may not be a site for a dog park, but something to think about as well. We do have some drawings, and I don't have them on a slide because there were more than a few of kind of what you're talking about, an overlay at McGaw, where they've taken away a tennis court or two for different swimming pool facilities to accommodate the new footprint. And I think, go ahead, Mike.
Or more specifically, the existing pool at McGaw overlaid on the Zoder Park, just to see how much more room there is over there, because it seems like there would be significantly more room at Zoder than there is existing at McGaw, basically.
I think, yes, I think you are correct. That would definitely be more room. And we can do that.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you. That's all I had for now.
Sure.
Yeah. One thing I'd maybe like to clear up first is the Navy site. Granted, the Navy is still proffering that as a location. But I'm thinking if we cut the project down in half, whatever that means, meaning half the parking, half the locker room facilities, and a non-Olympic sized pool, our operating costs for the big plan were $2 million a year. And so would it be only now $1 million a year to lease that space and the operating costs, some of which, of course, we're currently paying at McGaw? But I want to be fair about that. But I just don't see where doing anything on the Navy base is going to be practical from an economic standpoint.
Yeah, you may be in fact right. We haven't evaluated from a cost standpoint a reduction in size at that site. You may be in fact right. I don't know that we've done that. Iris, has there been any evaluation of a smaller footprint at that site and what the cost may be?
No, unfortunately, we have not evaluated the cost impacts for a much smaller footprint and what the O&M would be associated subsequent to build out. But that is something that we can look into if council so desires.
Well, I mean, I don't, yes, I would like to know, because in order to, evaluate whether that's still a viable option. But I don't believe, Iris, that it needs to be, it really only needs, in my opinion, a back of the envelope estimate, because whether it's half or a little more than half, a little less than half, or almost as much, I mean, we'll know right away whether or not financially, it's a viable location. Again, as long as the Navy wants, market rates to lease the property, and we're still going to have operating costs. There's the use of chemicals will be less than an Olympic-sized pool, and we won't need bleachers, and we can reevaluate how many parking spaces, we want to build. But then, whether it's a parking lot for 300 cars or 150 cars, it's still going to need to be repaved every so many years or slurry sealed every so often. And so I think if we do at least a, sort of a cursory evaluation of what the operating costs would be, I think that would give us enough insight to be able to say, no, that's still going to be way more than we can afford on an annual basis. With regard to the McGaw site, I mean, the Zoder site, I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, that's enticing in the sense that you could simply take the entire property and look at what can we do with what is it, 3 acres? Yeah, with roughly 3 acres, and for without looking at what's there now, with the exception of the daycare, and say, well, if you put the pool in the back, in the front, or in the middle, and you have a little dog park, and you have a regular park around it, and you figure out a way to integrate parking, maybe the entrance, you work out some arrangement with the property owner of the Zoder commercial site. There's all kinds of ways of looking at that to where aesthetically it might be interesting. The big items there are going to be the intrusion in the neighborhood. We already, even though slow pitch softball and other activities in the ball field are not what they used to be. You still have neighbors that are going to be upset about, the swimming pool noise, which, we at least would need to take a look at. I think though, with 3 acres to deal with, and you take that, lift the McGaw pool and plop it down in the middle of that, I think there's a lot of space there to create what could be a very nice location. The McGaw site, to me, is the easiest now that we have cooperation from the school district, and they're saying, yeah, help us here. Let's sit down together with a common goal that we both the city and the district want a pool. And now we look at what can we do about parking, and deal with whether we would be using 1 or 2 tennis courts, and see what that gives us. What do we need in addition to what we have now? Well, I would guess we need some kind of locker facility. I don't think we need to be concerned about, swim meets. I'm of the opinion that at this point, the dream of a competition 50-meter pool and everything that goes along with that, just isn't realistic for our city. I know a lot of people will be angry and disappointed about that, but I just don't, at some point we have to be adults here and see what we can do with the money that we are capable of even borrowing. The fact that we've got about 4.7 million, 4.5 million that was set aside for the pool that would still be there. And so, if we could build a pool, at McGaw or at Zoder, for 8 or 9 million for a pool, then that, to me, falls into the realm of us being able to afford the indebtedness by a bond. So I think that's basically my view at this point.
And thank you for that, Mayor. Those are really great thoughts and good feedback. And so what I'm hearing, at least, and tell me if I'm incorrect, is that we essentially have 3 sites that we're looking at. So you kind of, and I'm trying to avoid sort of the rabbit hole that's been going on since about 2007 with the pool. And there's been many iterations and many discussions and back and forths, and really no one location chosen and really evaluated outside of, quite frankly, the Navy base. It looks like, Councilmember Verapapa mentioned doing an overlay of at Zoder of what
Right.
a new pool at the McGaw would look like. But how if we did, we looked at the 3 sites and did kind of the same footprint for all 3, evaluated from back of the envelope cost assessment to see what that would look like. And, I think we're all very well aware of the pros and cons. I mean, the only place or only site that's not going to have sort of the NIMBY situation, for lack of a better term, is the Navy base. You're going to have that situation if you go to Zoder with the additional traffic, maybe potential parking conflicts, those types of things. When you have a new pool, you're going to attract more people. There are definitely, I think, are probably going to be more people going to a new pool than would be currently going to a McGaw pool. If you move a pool to McGaw, it's a new pool as well, which is going to attract more people.
Right.
And so you're going to have parking issues, lighting issues, noise issues at both locations that, those are sometimes, and I think what happened in 2008 and 2009, those became more political issues than anything else, not only for the city council at the time, but also for LAUSD. And so
Right.
it kind of was just in a holding pattern. And like I said, we have a whole new crew here, not only city staff, council members, but also LAUSD board members and LAUSD staff. So
Right.
this is all kind of new, even though we have the history and the research. And the more I research this, the more I want to get away from, making any recommendations that would involve a lot more money on studies and assessments and evaluations, and really honing in on one specific site. But what I'm hearing today is there are at least 3 potential sites that we could evaluate at maybe a low cost to see what would best fit our community.
Well, yeah, I agree. But what I'm also sort of coming to a conclusion as we sit here today and listening to the conversation, I think that we may need to go outside with all of the with everything that all of you folks have on your plates to deal with everything that's going on currently in the city. I think that to maybe look outside for someone that has experience in these kind of facilities, regardless of where they are, that would be able to take some of this burden off of our shoulders, meaning myself and you folks as staff, to come, to work with the city manager and of course staff to take that big part of it off our shoulders and give us the ability to use their experience and expertise specifically in that field to be able to come back and say, okay, here's my vision for these 3 plans. Number 1, forget plan A. It's never going to happen. And also, we could provide to this individual or company or whomever we're talking about, if there is somebody out there, that from Kelly, what can we afford? I mean, that's independent of whatever we're doing. If we could be building horse stables for all it matters. How much, and we know that we got roughly 4.5 million to start with. How much can we comfortably borrow to come up with a number that you can then give to a consultant or intern, whatever it turns out to be, to say, okay, we know we can bond or we can afford to be indebted for $5 million. And that includes, the money plus the money we have, and that includes building a facility, remodeling, a new pool, projected maintenance, whatever. Because without that, we wind up with a $22.4 million version that everyone shakes their head and we walk away. And as Patrick has said, here we are down shouting up from the rabbit hole again. So I don't know how you feel, Mike, but I think that this has become, it's just like, to me, it's just like, the Main Street revitalization plan and reviewing the Main Street specific plan. I mean, I think it's those kinds of projects I think you need outside resources, not necessarily brains, but resources. And I think that it's putting too much of a strain to ask, you folks that are on staff to try and handle all of this and keep this thing tracking to where we can start talking about, okay, this is the pool, this is what we're going to build, this is what we're going to borrow. And then, you can let the public weigh in, but in the meantime, we're building it.
Yeah, again, those are very good points, and I wouldn't disagree with any of them. I do know in doing research that we have had, again, some iterations of consultants coming on board and doing evaluations of these sites. But I agree. I think for the city to have sort of a consultant or an expert to come in and evaluate it in a very detailed way to cost it out, provide you with the advantages and disadvantages for each site would be very helpful to staff. So there'd be no disagreement on my end about that. I just want to keep us on track and not to sort of mirror what has happened in the past where we brought on a consultant, exactly. They've done the evaluation and studies and we're back at the same,
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, and I honestly, because I think that's when I first came on to the council, is that, I don't know how we got to the $22.5 million version that was presented to the public. I have no idea. So, my hope would be that if we are sort of starting fresh in that regard, that there will be direction coming from council to a lesser degree, because we're giving staff direction, but that you folks are going to be, dealing with this consultant and saying, no, don't, make sure you don't show us. I don't want to see the version with the clear glass bottom and the restaurant bar that, you'll be able to watch people swimming. We want a swimming pool, a community pool. I think we have to decide before we talk to a consultant that we simply are not interested in a competition pool, because we know already that we can't afford that. I mean, we've already had somebody price out what we can't afford. We know that.
Yeah,
Patrick,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, Patrick, if I could, to Mayor Kalmick's suggestion, and maybe Mayor Pro Tem Vera Papa has some comments as well. I think this is exactly one of the reasons why we wanted this to be an ad hoc committee and have input at the policy level from 2 elected council members on this project committee as we start to take some steps back so that we can hopefully start taking several steps forward. So I can, based on the recommendation, Patrick, I could work with you. I have some thoughts on potential options for utilizing some outside assistance with, someone, who has the experience and expertise that can take the heavy lifting off of the backs of our city staff, since we're trying to balance so many other things in order to keep this moving. I think that's a really positive, constructive recommendation.
I just want to jump in and say, I'd like to hear more from Mike about this.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor Kalmick. I would agree, as long as the cost for that consultant and the scope doesn't get too big. I would agree on most of your points. I think looking at the options is a good idea. And if you have to go outside, I could see a need for that if the staff definitely needs something like that. I just wouldn't want to get stuck to where we're doing this big wish list type of situation again. Just kind of stick to the nuts and bolts of what we want and kind of go from there. and keep it at a minimum if that's possible. So I'd be okay with that. Thanks.
Good.
If I can just add, you know what, the biggest difference I see in terms of our history with this pool is the fact that we actually have an ad hoc committee with the mayor and Mayor Pro Tem on it. It is, I think, the biggest difference in contrast to what has taken place in the past. And as Jill noted, it is really helpful because we can get immediate feedback from you and get direction. And I think we've learned a lot of lessons from the past, not only just in our own recent memory, but also before our time here. So I think we're in a better place. I think we're more focused, and I think it would be less challenging than before. You know, as I look at history, as they say, you know, you see the future if you look at the past. So like I said, we've learned a lot, and I think we can make some good progress getting some assistance for this project.
Good. I would agree with that too. Thanks.
Yeah, I think so, Patrick. I mean, again, this is in no way to, you know, cast aspersions on either the abilities or, you know, of staff. I mean, there's just, I'm always amazed that that our staff gets done what it gets done in the time you have to do it. Because every time there's an emergency that interrupts all of the things that you're working on, and now we're focusing on, you know, oil spills or who knows what. And so I just think that having, you know, a little bit of outside help to be doing a lot of the legwork and a lot of the background music with staff being able to input, you know, specifics to, you know, whether it's dealing with the school district or, you know, certain issues that we can provide information on a regular basis without you having to drop everything else that you're working on and having to deal just with the pool.
Yeah, no, thank you for your confidence in us and our abilities. And, you know, we welcome to work with anyone to make sure that the community has the pool that they want and deserve.
Well, that's great. I mean, you know, I think this time I feel confident, not because I'm here or you're here or Mike's here, but I think that we have sort of a unified goal now, and we know that we can overcome whether it's the obstacles that the community presents. You know, I always say to myself that at some point, you know, there has to be an adult in the room, and I think this is the point where, you know, this ad hoc committee and staff and city manager we all need to be the adult in the room and make a decision that, you know, will be presented to the community, and we will make it available for input. But if we have determined that it's going to be a community pool and not a competition pool because we've done the research, then sorry, folks, this is the direction that we're going. And if you want to, you know, bring out the torches and pitchforks, you're welcome to do it. I don't mean that, you know, I'm not trying to be confrontational with anybody. I'd love to see this whole thing come to fruition with no blood in the water. But I think by having a unified concept of what we do based on economic realities, geographic realities, and anything else you can think of, that we will come up with the right solution.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree, and you know, welcome to challenge. And city manager, do you have any other further comments at all?
No, I appreciate the very clear and forthright policy direction from our two council representatives, and appreciate the perspective, especially in support of staff and ensuring that we have the assistance we need on this project committee so we can continue to move forward. So thank you for that.
Great.
Well, thank you, Mayor Kelmick and Mayor Pro Tem Verapapa for your time and for your feedback and for your guidance. We really appreciate it. And we'll start heading on the next steps and keep you apprised of any new developments.
Good. I've located the drawer where my swimming trunks are, so I'll make sure that they're standing by.
I can't wait.
Okay.
All right. Well, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, bye.